Hello boys and girls and undefined. I'm Kline from Discount Aquarium, and today's Kline Time video is going to show you how you can turn a drilled tank with an internal overflow into a tank with plugged holes and turn those overflows into high capacity biofilters. Most of the time this is done. I have people come in, they want to do a freshwater tank, large tank, it's got overflows. They're asking me about whether I can cut them out. I'll usually talk them into doing this instead. This is an overflow that was cut out of a tank. This one's been in some fights because it's missing some teeth, but generally you're going to have either one or two overflows in the drilled tank. They'll be in the back, either off center, or if there's two of them, slightly off center in the back of the tank. Sometimes they're in the back corner, sometimes they're peninsula style on the end of the tank. Regardless of what style overflow we're dealing with, the first step is going to be to plug the holes. We don't want the holes going out of the tank because we're going to do all this filterization and design this filter to work using the internal overflow box. You're going to buy bulkheads to plug the holes that are in the tank. The holes under an overflow are generally going to be Schedule 40 bulkheads, a 1 inch for the drain and a 3/4 inch for the return. We're going to want to plug both of them. You can measure your holes. A 1 inch is going to be a 1 3/4 inch hole, so you buy the right bulkhead, Schedule 40, and a 3/4 inch is going to be a 1.5 inch size hole. You're going to want to buy thread fittings to go into that those bulkheads, and then you're just simply going to go to the hardware store. You're going to buy a PVC plug. You're going to insert the plug into each bulkhead. If for some reason you have different size holes, just go online, type in bulkhead hole sizes, and you'll be able to see whether you need Schedule 80 bulkheads for the size holes you have and what size bulkheads, or whether you need Schedule 40 bulkheads. You go ahead and pick up the right ones. Then you can go ahead and plug them up. You put in your plug into the bulkhead. I recommend using silicone on the threads, good coat of silicone. Thread that in. Never leaks that way. Using Teflon tape's a little more tricky. Usually 5 wraps of the tape is fine, but if you wrap too few, it'll leak, and if you wrap too many, you can break the fitting. So much better to use the silicone method for plugging your bulkhead holes in that overflow, or if you have other holes out in the interior of the tank, that's the way you do it. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to get a pump, a submersible pump. You can find these used, or you can buy them new. You can even buy models that have pulsing if you want to pulse the water coming back into the tank for a little bit of wave action. I recommend something big, 1,000 to 2,000 gallons per hour. We want this filter that we're going to make to really kick some water through the filter, and that'll also provide more flow in the tank. So pick a nice sized pump. Next, you're going to cut some 3/4 inch tubing. You're going to cut this tubing long enough to go from a 3/4 inch barb fitting on the pump up to a 3/4 inch barb fitting on a return. Depending on whether your overflow has holes up top, many times it will have 2 holes drilled up top, 3/4 inch bulkheads, and these will be used to thread in a piece of lock line fitting for the return. If it has 1 hole, you're going to be using 1 lock line and 1 bulkhead. If it has 2, you're going to be using 2 lock lines, 3/4 inch, and 2 bulkheads. If it does have 2, you're going to need to use a T and a small amount of tubing to connect those 2 together. Then you'll have dual return coming out in that tank. If it does not have holes drilled, you have a couple choices. You can use an elbow thread fitting, thread in a 3/4 inch barb fitting, and then you can drill a hole up near the top, like a little U-shaped hole, or notch it out so that this threaded part of the lock line sits right down in that groove in the top. Better is to go ahead and use a wood hole cutting bit That's just a hole saw you'll buy at the hardware store. Go ahead and drill your 1 or 2 bulkhead holes regarding what you want. If you want the dual or if you want the single, you'll thread in a bulkhead and you'll either connect them together with a T, or if you're not using a T, you'll thread it in. You'll use a downward facing barb fitting, and you'll go ahead and come in, have the 90-degree barb fitting go straight down to the pump. Bulkhead goes in the side. Remember, with your bulkheads, the ones you're using for plugs and the ones you're using in the side, these have a gasket between a nut. The gasket always goes on the water side, and then the nut is screwed up against the inside of where you're placing the fitting. Now we'll have a pump installed in our overflow, and we'll have a tube coming up connecting to our outs from the overflow. We need to go ahead and buy some bioballs, and bioballs or whatever other biological filter medium you need are going to be used to fill up this overflow. You're going to fill it up to within a few inches from the top of the overflow. Then you're going to take some aquarium sponge, and you're going to cut this sponge based on the size of the top opening of the overflow. You're going to notch out a small amount where the tubes are coming out for the return, and you're going to make it slightly bigger than that opening at the top of the overflow so you can bunch it in there nice and tight. That's going to be your mechanical filter on the top of this filter, the internal filter that we're making. It's important to clean this sponge often because we don't want a lot of biological large material getting down into the bioballs and rotting there. So you want to clean that filter every couple weeks. If you like to run carbon, leave a little extra room when you put in the bioballs. You can throw a big carbon bag in there and put the sponge on top of that. And there you have it. You've got a great internal biological, mechanical, chemical filter system for that tank. You've plugged up the holes. You're not going to be running a wet dry or sump or something like that underneath, and you're good to go. Thanks for watching. I'm Kline. This is my time.